Hello and welcome to the Move Your Business Forward podcast. These talks are hosted by Boll, founder of Evoke Management and CEO of International Leaders UK. He'll be talking with experts from both these companies about issues that affect SME companies today.
Welcome to this edition of the Move Your Business Forward podcast. And at the moment, we're talking about the particular theme of the big squeeze. Lots of companies right now are struggling with a range of things, from inflation, prices going up, supply chain challenges, and also attracting and retaining the best team or people in the team. Today in particular, we're going to talk about the subject of clients, and specifically how to love your key clients, and also why that's so important. I'm joined here today by a couple of my Evoke colleagues, Nigel and Dee, both commercial directors at Evoke, working with a range of SME companies, helping them move their business forward. So welcome both, and thanks for joining me today. So getting straight into it, this topic of loving your key clients. Firstly, I think the key thing is, well, why is that important? Why do we need to love our clients? Might sound like an obvious thing, but I think something worth exploring to start with. Nigel, any particular thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, we were just touching on some of this a minute ago. The reality is the world's a very competitive place these days, and the cost of acquiring new clients, whether it's internal, third party, and the complexity of acquiring new clients in a digitally motivated and aware world, is significant and actually becoming more and more complex and more expensive. So one of the first things I do when I go talk to new businesses is get an understanding of who they think their key clients are before I start to look at the numbers and maybe assess whether that assessment is correct, and get their view on what they're doing for them and how they're looking after them, how they're holding onto them, what their plan is for them. So it's that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the ones that when we have a look at it, we're going to land as being the key clients, but understanding who they think they are and how they're lining up behind the business. And even if they are thinking in those terms, is normally my starting point with any client. I tend to split this quite a lot between B2C and B2B because the nature of the relationship can be different. One's a more emotional relationship. In your B2C space, you've got to think about, if you're, to choose an example, going to a restaurant or buying some clothing, which is one of the businesses I run myself, whether they're going to come back is going to be heavily dependent on that experience. Whether they tell their friends about it is going to be heavily dependent on that experience. More so than where I'm working in the B2B space, running big contracts, where it's a little bit more contract and goal alignment and a little bit more structured in terms of the relationship. So those are the sort of things I'm looking for when I talk to a business.
Well, I think there's a really good distinction there between B2B and B2C clients, because I think there is a difference, but we can go into that in a bit more detail. But just taking a bit of a step back, Dee, it'd be great to get your thoughts on how you should identify your key clients, because I think this is the first thing, isn't it? You've only got a certain amount of time to give to clients, and your client relationship or all the effort you put into that across someone running a business or people you've got in the team. So I think the first thing is to understand who your key client should be and whether you've got that right, and then we can talk a bit about why that's important as well from your perspective, Dee. So any thoughts on that, how to identify your key clients?
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. I think what Nigel was saying earlier is the distinction between the B2B and the B2C, but one of the fundamental things at the end of the day is creating a structure, whether it is B2B or B2C, to identify your top 5 clients, let's just say. And how much does that really represent in terms of your revenue for the business? And the key thing about it is to actually also identify what are your criteria for what you are saying. So, for example, if you're providing a product, is a certain percentage sufficient for you to say, and it's repeat business, actually you're one of your key clients. So the structures are very different, but the fundamental thing any SME should actually look at, or any business, is to identify, does that put me at risk? Does that actually say that I might have a potential, if I lose one of my key clients, to actually put the whole business at risk? So one of the basic rules when I go in and see some of my clients is to go, can we identify that? Is that the correct structure for you? is that the right criteria for you? And in any business, whether it is B2B or B2C, the other fundamental thing is try and ensure that you don't have more than max 20% of your revenue coming from any one single client. That alleviates the risk to a greater degree. And loving your key clients is that focusing even 5 or 10% of your effort towards those key clients will actually bring you more revenue and repeat business.
And I think you mentioned top 5, and I think it really depends on the type of business, right? But
Absolutely.
one way to look at it could be percent of revenue. Yeah, how much revenue have you got from X number of clients, and then work out how many you should really have as a focus.
Absolutely, yeah, because these guys know you. They'll come back to you. They know your service. They know your product. They know the quality, etc., and so forth. So,
and the other key element to that is your current key clients are likely to be your most cost-effective way of getting to your new clients as well. In a world of recommendation, both in the B2C world where it's influenced and such like, and the B2B world, so wrapping around those clients and understanding their referenceability, which is one of the 2 or 3 key measures I have for my key clients at any point in time from my teams, is they are judged on to what degree the client is a full advocate or just a supporter or a detractor, is one of the key 3 messages and measures I give them, so that they're supporting, if you will, that growth. But I have to say, I completely agree with you on the exposure to key clients. See it so often in terms of, small businesses find an opportunity, find if you will, the goose that's laying the golden egg, and focus too hard on that one. And after over 2 or 3 years, it can leave you with a real problem, and actually with the wrong skill base in the business as well, because the skill of looking after your existing clients and the plan and process around that is often different to that which is required to go out and get the new clients. So too much of a focus on existing clients, particularly as we come out of a period when businesses have been in a lockdown phase. It's a different set of skills now needed. We touched on it earlier. This is going to be an environment where you're going to have to hunt. It's going to be hard work to get out and find the new clients. You're going to make sure you've got the right skill sets in there as well for that.
No, 100%. Really agree with all of that. So a couple of things then I think we worth talking about in a bit more detail. Firstly, what can you actually do to spread that love against your clients? And then secondly, once you've built that relationship, you've got those kind of relationships going, I think the next thing for me is leverage. What can you leverage from those relationships? Because ultimately that's what we're going to drive here. So yeah, spreading the love. Dee, any thoughts on how you can really push those relationships?
It's interesting because coming myself from that background and having been, and having my own businesses and advising businesses today, it's quite interesting as to how to spread the love. I think one of the things is, and it's a basic rule, is knowing your client's business sometimes even better than they do.
Yep.
Understanding it, realizing their competitors, doing some market research, looking at it from an open point of view, because really the entrepreneurs and the owners and the businesses are so busy running the business that sometimes they don't have that outside perspective. So looking into social media, competitive analysis and research, that helps to be in a very proactive way, be able to get them to be one step ahead of what their customers would be requiring or what they as a business require today. And just to give you a little example, I have one client at this moment who's actually supplying a product to retail shops. These are small shops. These are local owners in the community. And it's interesting that no matter what they were trying, the services they were using for the logistics to get the products to the shop wasn't actually getting there on time. And they were hearing this from their customers directly, weren't asking for the feedback, but the customers were complaining. And the switch that we made was to say, look, actually, we'll provide the logistics services for you as well, and we will deliver the products on time. And over a period of a couple of years, what's really actually happened is now they control all the logistics for all the variety of products, plus their own. So they've just actually added a cross-sell or an upsell opportunity for their business, which they had never considered, by just being a bit more innovative and on the pulse and listening to their clients. So loving your clients, this is a great example of where now 60% of their revenue is actually on logistics and 40% is on delivering the product that they were delivering in the first place.
And that's a great example of leverage as well, isn't it? You're leveraging
Absolutely.
that relationship, that knowledge, and going, look, we can solve this for you. Let's just crack on and do it. You're not competing with anyone. You're just adding another
adding value by actually tweaking your service offering just ever so slightly. And the thing that Nigel was also mentioning earlier on with regard to leverage, what's actually happened in referrals is that now the other shopkeepers to the shop that they were delivering are talking about, how come you always get your products on time? And they're like, well, actually, I use this company, which is great. So now they're actually getting the referrals as well through the community, which is brilliant. So again, that part of the business has grown because of that as well. So I think, Nigel, that's a very important point in terms of referrals.
And the interesting thing is what we're talking about here sometimes isn't in the natural skill set of the entrepreneurs that I deal with, who tend to be more creative, innovation, energy-led people. And what we're talking about here actually is a bit of a structure you can put into your business. When you've got these clients, it's where you start to put in structure. And I tend to do it just around 3 or 4 themes. We've touched on the referenceability side of it as well. There's clearly a space around understanding their importance to you from a cash and a margin perspective and having a plan on that. Yeah, because what I want to come out of a plan is some aligned goals. So I need to know what my plan is for me before I talk to the client about what their plan is for them. Sometimes you can go down the wrong path otherwise. So be clear what you want out of the relationship as well. So I tend to focus on cash and margin. I tend to focus on the common goals and the misaligned goals, because you may well have those. And actually, it's okay as long as you recognize them, where there's a little bit of goal divergence, and having these discussion of your plan with the client does also create an open honesty. I mean, the final element that I'm going to look at is some of the risks that sit around the client. Well, are there any risks and threats to my relationship? But just having 4 or 5 key themes under a little bit of structure like that, even for small businesses, and I'm dealing with this for one at the minute, we're literally going through the process of writing the plans for their 3 key clients because their board has challenged them to do so because they haven't got a long enough view on it. It's not difficult. And what that allows, by having a little bit of structure, it also decouples the need for the CEO sometimes to be the only person involved in the relationship. Too often I see the client only wants to talk to the CEO, okay, because they're the guys with authority to do anything. If there's a structure and a plan around the key 3 or 4 clients, and I've got someone who I've given the delegated authority to, it frees the CEO to go and do that difficult hunting stuff again. Yeah. Yep. Farming the existing is something that you move on to somebody to release you to play your main strengths, So there's real benefits to having that plan for your client, for you in growing the business as well as just retaining the business.
Just in terms of this, Nigel, from your perspective, what kind of things would you encourage either the owners of a business, the management team, or even other people to do? Is going out and having drinks, having lunch, coffees, or what are you thinking are the key things to do?
Okay. Okay. This is you're talking to a commercial ops guy rather than necessarily a full sales guy. That has a role to play in relationship development. Okay. If you're in contract, the person you're talking to, though, is going to be more interested to the point that Dee was saying, is the service I'm getting right? And am I getting value from the contract and the money that I'm paying these guys? Yep. You've got them through that first little bridge. We always make sure there's a little bit of that going on, because that's actually how you often get the referral part of the business, which helps you grow the business, because you're mixing with them socially with their contacts and colleagues. But within the business, I do think for SMEs in the business relationship, delivering value on what they're doing is the most important thing, and being seen, if possible, to be ahead, you touched on a day of, and anticipating the needs of their clients, ideally before they even know them. It's interesting. Most businesses, and this will be true of your clients as well as yourselves, tend to look too internally at times and don't look externally enough. What you can be for your client, okay, is take that external perspective, okay? Just make sure you're doing it for your own business as well, or someone's doing it for you, if that makes sense, bringing that external perspective on your business to play, because that's often what's missing, and that's where people don't fix the problems before they hurt them.
Yeah, no, sure. No, it makes a lot of sense, Nigel. Dee, any other thoughts you've got in terms of just simple things people can do today, tomorrow, just to help improve?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the key things that again, I go back to the example that I was citing earlier, that we've also put into place for some other clients that we have is incentivizing staff on the customer service aspect. So when you're actually looking internally, as Nigel was saying earlier, and you get too focused on it, adding an element of that, if your staff have a bonus scheme, for example, that would be quite key on the qualitative part of the service. You can do that with your sales teams on a qualitative basis, as well as not just pure numbers, but you can also do that in the services sector. So both ways, there is an incentive within the organization to actually add more value at every touch point that a client might have within your business. So it doesn't really matter what sector it's in, it can actually help to add that little bit extra. And it's very fundamentally important because that's a culture that you can build from day one. When you get into large organizations, unfortunately, that gets diluted with processes and procedures, one having shareholders and return. But when you're actually doing it from the very beginning, it becomes part of the culture of the organization, which is fundamentally important. So I think that leverage of adding value to your customers is very, very important.
And again, with that, it's something you can easily measure by simple NPS type score or anything like that. You can just put into the process to start judging how well you're doing these things. Sorry, Nigel, I interrupted.
No, I was going to say absolutely. And again, you were saying, well, how do you put a little bit of structure around some of these things as well? A good relationship will probably have multiple touch points. Okay. So again, as part of client planning for me, if I've reached that point, which hopefully you will have done, so it's not just the CEO, we relationship map and do that NPS score in essence about each of the relationships. So it can be CTO to CTO, service delivery to service. So you're actually engaging at different levels in the business and understand, make sure you know who within that business at different levels are your fans and supporters and who are your potential terrorists, as they say. So you can put a little bit of very really simple structure. Make sure you're covering all the bases, not just one.
Yep. No, 100%. And leverage then, I mean, other things, because there's all very well doing this, but what value is it going to add? We talked about some of the benefits, but sometimes I think people don't necessarily have the conversations with their clients that they got on well with to leverage what they built in terms of a good service relationship. So any thoughts as to how to leverage these relationships for more value?
Okay.
On a B2C world, okay, in some ways it's fairly straightforward for me. I run a little yoga business selling yoga clothing as part of if you will, the portfolio I do. Understanding who our influencers are, okay, literally is a direct thing into the digital world of marketing. So it depends where your outreach of voice is. Is it going to be, as I say, through a B2C, which is going to be through digital media, which is going to be through referenceability, in which case you're looking for the people who've got the greatest reach, if that makes sense, as opposed to in the B2B space where the relationship might be more of a direct, more mutual one, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Dee, any thoughts around leveraging?
Yeah, I think Nigel again has made a very, very important point. And I think one of the things is proactive feedback in terms of leveraging. In the B2B, as Nigel said, it's much more, closer. But what you can do is get feedback in a sliding scale of a structured, simple survey that comes back every time you've delivered a project or you've delivered a service. So that's actually quite easy to do. But one of the most fundamental things that I find quite interesting is, it's very personal. I went and got my hair cut the other day, and I had the lady who was cutting my hair, who was the other lady who was washing my hair, and somebody else who was, sort of at the till paying. And all three of them came up to me because what they've done at my local hairdressers is gone, could you give us some feedback? Because we've got a staff competition going on and we want to win this because we want to make sure that we've provided the best quality of service to all our customers. And they were kind enough to give me a piece of paper, the website address, their names, and said, just in case you forget our names. Loved it. And I said, what do you guys win at the end of the day? And actually, it was something so simple. It was incredibly touching in that they would get a gift that they could give to someone in their family to get a free haircut at the shop that they work at. And I thought, that's great for incentivizing and leveraging. And then suddenly it's like, more people are coming in. Hey, your mom got a haircut here. Actually, she talked to me about it and I want to come here and try it out. Leverage, new clients coming in.
And the interesting thing is we're actually really used to it. It's a great example. In our own consumer world, we're actually far more used to that direct ask for feedback, and it isn't difficult to do, but we don't do it that often in the B2B world. One thing I will say is if you've got a good enough relation, actually asking people face to face will give you one set of answers, but actually, and generally more positive. But if you actually ask people who you're trying to work with in a more structured way, just give us 5 minutes to write me an email on what we could have done better, you'll probably get more learning and an honest view from that, because it's very rare that any of us do things where we couldn't have done it slightly differently and better to suit their needs. So if you can actually get them to commit to 5 minutes of actually putting it down on paper, you might get a slightly different, more useful view that will help you change.
And every touch point of that business to business client, because obviously you don't want to just talk to the guy who's placing the order with you. You actually want to know the others that are falling in through as well, is the only thing I would add, because if we can leverage that, a business can leverage that even further, it actually really does help.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. We're actually almost out of time for this podcast. So last remaining thoughts. Any top tips, Nigel, coming to you first? Your one top tip if you're going to talk to anyone about just having a look at how they could improve their love for their key clients.
Love for their key clients. Structure, a little without overcomplicating it. Just think, what's the structure I need? What's the important measures for me and my clients? Keep it to 2 or 3, and then talk to your team about it, and then talk to your client about it. So put a little bit of structure around it. Would be my main thing. Yeah,
it's like you say, we have so many structures, plans, things in place for getting new clients. Is the habit for your existing clients.
Yeah,
that's the top
what's your existing client pipeline, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Dee, any remaining thought or tip you would share?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with the structure comment. I think also it's not forgetting that you do need new blood, but the focus needs to be tilted slightly differently, and the incentivization on staff that we've talked about earlier, and being one step ahead, knowing your client's business better than they might know it, because they're just too busy running it to actually know what's happening from an outside view in, that would actually leverage quite a lot of client love as well.
No, perfect. That's great. Well, look, thank you both for your time today for this. I've enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully a number of people get some value out of listening to this. So thank you both, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like more information about the topics discussed in this podcast, then you can find us on our website at moveyourbusinessforward.com.